I'm here at a pretty cool spot. It's a claim of an acquaintance, actually. So this is a private claim, right? But he's allowing us to collect, me and my buddies collect. You can see here's a trench that he's been digging out, and I just wanted to show you crystal faces. You don't see this too often on public sites. This stuff gets destroyed instantly the second it's exposed, because either somebody finds it and they know they can't extract it and they're like, oh, I'll try and come back with the right tools, and then the next person comes and they go, oh, I know how to extract that, and they fudge it all up. But check out this feldspar face, and then you got some really large pyroxenes, and look at that. I'm pretty sure that's an apatite crystal just sitting there, and that's pretty darn cool. And for example, here's just a plate of feldspars, and look at that feldspar crystal there. That's my hand for reference. Not a really good reference if you don't know the size of a hand, but it's a pretty cool plate. But yeah, you can see just this vein goes like that, and it's just chock full of stuff. It's pretty cool to see. But I think I'm gonna go up higher, somewhere up on that hillside. I've seen that they found apatites up there, so I'll poke around there and see what there might be up there. So before I go up, I thought I'd show you a couple just pieces that were just discarded off to the side that I'm allowed to keep. This one's like a plate of pyroxenes, but it's got quartz intermixed. You can actually see right there. That's a formed quartz point, and most of the quartz is kind of blobby and not fully formed. It's almost crystallized, but not fully crystallized. But this one has a couple small crystallized points, which is pretty cool. Not that common for this area, the Gibson area. I'm not going to say exactly where we are, but you know, we're in the general Gibson area. And then here's a nice huge chunk of pyroxene crystals. Look at those. Very nice. Very nice large pyroxene crystals. So I started on the spot, and right away at the surface I'm finding some pretty lustrous kind of amphiboles. I think they say it's fluorictorite. So, but that's pretty interesting. And you can see here I've got a bunch of other stuff here too. But yeah, it's right at the surface. I'm just pulling stuff up. Actually, you can see this is a big chunk that I rolled out already. And you can see there's pockets, cavities, where you can roughly see the amphibole faces. But it is a big piece, obviously. So the trench continues. I know on this side, you can kind of see this black material here. So this is the face of the one side of the vein. And then I've got more sitting here, so I'm trying to figure out if this material's loose or if it's tight. Then that means that this side would be the other side of the vein. And I just roll this piece out, and I can see it's got some faces on it. I don't know if it's any good, but looks like there's some amphibole in the mix there. So I might just put that off to the side and give her a good wipe down later on and see if she's worth it. So progress has been made. I pried this one out, and I can feel underneath with my hand that there's crystals on this boy. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks like it could clean up nicely, so I think that's just going to come home with me. That looks like a plate of crystals, and some decent sized ones with some good luster, so that's coming home with me. And this is kind of all the stuff that I think I'm planning to keep. I'll kind of go through it one more time before I pack everything up. But you can see, not that big one. That big one I just rolled out of the way, and it's just a pedestal. But it looks like this spot might produce some good stuff. So I'm gonna keep going and see how it is. So I've just been following basically this line here. And I rolled out this chunk. It's not totally intact. The back of the crystals are broken, but holy cow, these are some very decent sized amphibole crystals. I'm tempted to take this home even though it's broken. So we'll put it with my pile and I'll deliberate as I continue to dig. If I find anything whole of the same size, then I won't have to. Well, I might take it home for a cousin or something. Who knows? They'll like this kind of stuff. So this is something you don't see too often in like the Gibson Road Occurrences area. Smoky quartz crystal. Look at that. It's got a pretty interesting termination on the end. My friend Eric found this one. Pretty awesome piece. Just having too much fun pulling out apatites. But I was digging in there, and that's where most of these came from. Well, the lower down, it seemed a lot of them were, let's see, this is a good example. You can see it's very rusty and kind of brownish. But then the higher I went, fortunately this guy broke as I was pulling him out of the dirt. They tend to be a bit fragile. This one was, you can see at least the color is the nice Jolly Rancher green that you want. But yeah, that's what I found today. I'm gonna pack these up and head on home. Here are some of my best finds cleaned up. Got plenty of interesting apatites, some interesting amphibole, and I said diopside. I'm not 100% sure. This might be just another type of amphibole, but it could be a pyroxene. Who knows? I'm thinking amphibole though. I might have been wrong on the pyroxene guess. But let's actually talk about apatite for a bit in this video. So what gives the apatite at Gibson Road its green color? In this case, it's manganese. It's manganese ions, and blue apatite also is affected by manganese ions. And then there are different apatites, and depending on the different type of apatite, you'll have different types of ion inclusions or ion impurities, which give it its color. Now, with some of these specimens, you can obviously tell they have been iron stained, and with some of the apatite, with the iron staining, it actually leaches into the apatite and gives it a brown color, or at least leaches into the direct subsurface of the apatite crystal. Now, what causes this iron staining? This iron staining is caused by pyrite. You can see some of it poking through this heavily oxidated layer. And incidentally, the zones where there is a lot of oxidized pyrite, you'll get not only iron-stained apatite, but you'll get apatites that have this white, creamy color. Now with apatite, pure apatite that has no impurities is white. So this shows, or at least from what I understand and what I've read online, is the iron staining and the iron oxidization eventually actually leaches the ions that cause the coloration out of the apatite. And how does this happen? Well, I suspect, from what I understand, when pyrite oxidizes, not only does it turn into iron oxide, but it releases the sulfur that is in the pyrite. And I believe this sulfur probably turns into sulfuric acid. And for anyone who knows, is apatite, though it doesn't react violently with acids, over long exposure times or exposure to stronger acids, it will turn this white color, and it will start to melt and crumble away, as it looks like with this large apatite. So what I believe has happened is that when this pyrite oxidizes, it produces sulfuric acid, which in turn slowly over time etches away some of the apatite and also leaches out in this case, the manganese ions, which give it the apatite in the Gibson Road area its color. Now, of course, that's kind of a theory based off of what I've heard other people talk about when they talk about these white apatites that they find in locations like the Gibson Road Occurrence, or, for example, the Smart Mine. I've seen a couple of areas where there's this oxidative layer, and the apatites in that layer tend to be this kind of bleached milky white. And I believe it might be due to sulfuric acid. Now, with the science talk out of the way, let's show you some of these specimens. To start off, we'll talk about the amphibole I found on my friend's claim. Most of it was quite weathered and actually not that great looking, but some of it has some nice luster to some of the crystal sides, and it has some terminations. So altogether, that spot was not super productive, but it was still interesting to see, and also it was a good learning experience, kind of chasing mineral pockets that are closer to the surface. So it was still a lot of fun to collect, and I still got a couple nice specimens out of it. And another friend actually started collecting in the same kind of pocket we were collecting together, and he also found some nice lustrous specimens out of the same pocket. So it was a good little pocket, just most of the stuff in there was not as good as I thought it was going to be. This apatite crystal came from the same claim. Actually, it came out of, I believe, that trench that I showed you guys at the beginning of this video. This was found by another friend. He was digging around in one of the holes, and this plopped out. He didn't want it because it wasn't nicely double terminated, and he's got some really nice specimens in his collection, so he's a bit pickier with the stuff he finds nowadays. So I offered to take it off of his hands, and it looks pretty nice. It's a light green color with maybe some hints of red in there. It does have some kind of crunchy mineralization, so I'm gonna have to see if I can do something to get those off, and if not, it's just the way it is, you know. Sometimes you can't get them perfect, but it has a half decent termination, and the crystal faces are nice and sharp, so that's pretty good for a Gibson Road. Now here's that big piece that I found at the beginning. I called it pyroxene, and I now have my doubts it might be amphibole, so I had to do some testing. I have some fragments off of the side that fell off during the cleaning process, but altogether this is a pretty awesome piece. So you can see it has some really nice large crystals that are undamaged, and I think it'll be a great display piece. Now here are two of the larger apatites I found on this trip. They both come from an oxidative layer area. They both have oxidation on certain areas. This one, interestingly enough, if you look close enough, it actually fractured and then was filled in, rehealed with pyrite, and then that pyrite has started to oxidize. This one was actually found by a friend of mine, same one who found the other apatite. He had found a lot of these oxidized apatites before, so he gave me this one. I kind of helped him out dig out a certain area, and that came out of that area. And then this one I found on my own. It was on the other side of the same pocket that this one came out of. And it's funny enough, I didn't know this was actually an apatite. I thought it was just a rock that was kind of in the way, and I was digging further into the vein. So I popped it out, and then all of a sudden, when I took it out to put it off to the side, I realized it was a nice big chunky double terminated apatite. And like I was talking before in the science talk of the video, the science talk section, it's been etched and it's kind of been bleached by, I believe, the sulfuric acid produced by the oxidization of the pyrite. But still very cool, decent sized double terminated apatites. So in the same pocket that the large ones came out of, I did find some nice green ones. A lot of them were unfortunately fractured. They were closer to the surface, so I believe just the freeze and the thaw has fractured them out. But they were less affected by the iron staining. For example, this one came from the lower end. This is a double terminated, and you can see how bleached it is. But then compared to these, this one does have a little bit of iron staining, but it was close enough to the surface and farther away enough from the oxidized zone that it still contains that really nice kind of gemmy-ish, Jolly Rancher green color that you expect from a really nice classic Gibson Road apatite. Now this apatite is kind of an interesting little specimen. It does have some damage on the back, but it's actually two separate squat little double terminated apatites that have grown right up against each other and fused together. It does have some iron staining, as you can see, but altogether the most of the color is the nice Jolly Rancher green that you'd want. But overall, this was a great little trip. It was cool to see an actual private claim in the area and collect on a private claim, have the opportunity to do so, and I thank my friend for that. But it was also cool to go and finally collect some double terminated apatites. Titanite Hill, I always like to joke, I'm horrible at finding the apatites, the nice apatites, but I have really good luck finding the rare mineral, Titanite, which is less common at Gibson Road. And you're more expected to find a lot more amphibole, feldspar, and apatite than titanite, but I've always had better luck finding titanite over nice apatites. So finally, I'm happy that I found a couple nice apatites that I'm happy to put in my collection. This brings us to the end of the video. Please, in the description below, mention which of these you found the most interesting or you like the most. And please, if you haven't already and you've gotten to the end of the video, please do like and subscribe. It helps out the channel. And please, folks, just have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.